Mrs. Shomana Gracia Jacob, ME in Computer Science, lecturer in CPET, Chennai for the past 3 years. She has published 4 national and international papers. She has won Star Achiever Award for academic proficiency.
Welcome to the UGC lecture series in computer science. In today's session, we will be seeing about the basic introduction to C++ from object oriented concepts. So, in the last session, we had been seeing about the basic concepts in OOP. Today, we will see about overloading concept in OOP and how C++ came to be from these concepts. So, this is a concept of overloading. Overloading is somewhat related to polymorphism. So, we will see how it is related to polymorphism and what are the different types of overloadings that are available in C++. Polymorphism is exhibited in OOP through this concept of overloading. So, the types of overloading that are available in OOP are function overloading, constructor overloading and operator overloading. So, we will see how each of these is overloaded in C++. So, when we say function overloading, it is a process of using the same name for different functions. As I said earlier, a function with the same name can perform different operations. So, that is what is implemented in function overloading. And each redefinition of the function, redefinition in the sense, see, a function will have a definition, means it tells what that function does. When a function with the same name does different things, you need to have redefinition of that function. So, how is that redefinition done? What is the difference other than the function name in the definition of those functions? One is, a function can use different types of parameters. So, we know that every function needs to have a name and it needs to have a set of arguments. When the name is going to be the same, the difference in the function should be only in the arguments. So, the argument can differ in the type, that is a data type. If one function is having integer data type, the other function should have float or double or character data type arguments. Another one is the sequence of parameters. Say one function is having an integer, character and float, another function can have a float, character and integer. So, the sequence in which the parameters are given in the function declaration also can be different. The third possibility is when there are different numbers of parameters. So, you have the function with the same name performing different operations, but the compiler can identify the difference in the functions by the parameters. What difference? One is in the data type of the arguments, the sequence of the arguments and the number of the arguments. So, this is how functions are overloaded in C++. When we write programs using these concepts, you will be able to understand it better. Next, we have constructor overloading. Now, constructor is a new term. Constructor is also a function, but the speciality of this constructor is that they have the same name as the class name. These functions all have the same name as the class name. So, we will see in detail what is the significant features of this constructor. They are special functions that perform the role of initialization. So, constructors are special functions which perform a special task. All constructors can do only one task. They can initialize the values for the data that are defined in the classes. As I said, a class can have data and functions. So, when you give values to those data, it is called initialization. That is normally done in constructor function. They have the same name as the class name. Secondly, all constructors should have the same name as the class name. So, this is bringing the constructors to the same point of functions. When all constructors have the same name, how are we going to differentiate on the operations that are to be performed by the constructors? Constructors are differentiated again based on the same 3 features: the type of parameters, the number of parameters and the sequence of parameters. So, even constructors are like functions, but there are 2 differences in them. Constructors should have the same name as a class name and they only perform the role of initialization. They cannot do any other work. They can only initialize values for the data. In addition to that, they can have parameters, they can be without parameters also. So, the way to differentiate among constructors is again only using parameters, the number, the data type and the sequence in which they are arranged. The third type is operator overloading. So, we saw function overloading, constructor overloading and now it is operator overloading. So, operators are the general operators that we have already seen in C and that we will be seeing now in C++ also. They provide additional meaning to the normal C++ operators when they are applied to user defined data types. So generally when we say operator, when we say plus or minus, the work that we expect that operator to do is to add two values or to subtract two values. When that operator is able to do something more than that, it is called an additional work. That operator is carrying some additional meaning. So when we are able to give some additional meaning to the existing operators in C++ to do user defined operations, it is called operator overloading. You are making that operator do more work than it is expected to do. An operator is expected to do only what it indicates, either addition or subtraction or division or multiplication, whatever the case may be. But you are making that operator do more work than it is expected to. So that is, you are overloading that operator. Only a predefined set of operators can be overloaded. That is to be noted, all operators cannot be overloaded in C++. Both unary and binary operators can be overloaded. So among the predefined set of operators, you have both unary and binary which can be overloaded to perform additional tasks. So this is the concept of overloading and how polymorphism is implemented using this overloading concept. In overloading, you have function, constructor and operator overloading. Now we will see each of these in detail when we are studying the concepts of C++. So now we come to the benefits of OOP, where we have already seen about inheritance, the reusability concept of inheritance, where we can get the features and functions from other classes. So it saves our time. Resilience to changes, any modification that should be made to the program can be made by just altering a few statements instead of the entire program. It is because the program is organized as classes and objects. When you make some minor change to the class, immediately that has an effect on all its objects. And it is easy to solve the problems by divide and conquer approach. Like you have functions, so instead of solving the task that is at hand at one particular stroke, you can divide the task into subtasks and make each object its function solve that particular task. So when the program is written as a whole, it solves the problem step by step. And it is easy to map objects in the problem domain to those in the program. That is, this is called realistic modeling. The technical term is realistic modeling. Like we can have classes which have a meaningful name, like you have, suppose you are working on an application involving automobiles or a car, you can just give the class name as car itself, identify its data as the number of tires, the model type, the year in which it was manufactured, the color of the car, and you can give value like red and some number. So you are able to map the actual problem in the real world to that in the program. It is because you are able to give meaningful names. So when you read that program itself, you come to an idea that it is about a car and about the features of the car, the functions of the car and so on. So that is only called realistic modeling, which is possible with OOP. And the principle of data hiding helps us to build secure programs. Now this data hiding comes from the concept of abstraction, abstract superclass, abstract data type, which hides the details from those programmers or from other classes and objects which do not need to know those details. So it just gives a general picture of the data and functions, whereas it does not give any other unnecessary details to other classes and objects. So the actual source of data can be hidden from accidental alterations. So this concept of data hiding is implemented using the abstract keyword in OOP. So in object oriented programming, from reusability to identifying objects in the problem domain, to the method of solving problems, to the concept of avoiding accidental alterations, everything is made possible with these concepts. It involves a lot of features which allow the programmers to develop such secure programs. So that is the benefit of object oriented programming. Next we will move to the basic introduction to C++ programming. We have studied about OOP concepts. Now we will see how C++ programming came to be from these OOP concepts. So we have to start with the basic elements of C++. Most of it is similar to what we have already seen in C, because C++ is nothing but C with classes. The class concept is not there in C. It has been introduced in C++. So the rest of the features like operators, data types, tokens, identifiers, everything is almost similar to C. So we will just give a brief brush up of all these concepts in C++. So the word token, what does it mean? It is the smallest individual unit in a program, which is also called a lexical unit. So, token refers to the basic elements of the C++ language, which cannot be further broken down into anything simpler. For example, if you take the English language, A, B, C, D are the simplest forms of the English language. You cannot simplify it further. They are the basic elements of that language. Like that, when we say tokens in a programming language, it means the smallest unit of that language. It has another name called lexical unit. So, there are 5 tokens available in C++. It is classified like that. You have keywords, identifiers, literals, variables and operators. So, today we will be seeing about keywords, identifiers, literals and operators. Before that, I will just take you to a brief slide about how a C++ program actually has a form. So, the basics of the C++ program. A C++ program is a collection of one or more subprograms. Subprogram is nothing but a function or a module or whatever you may call it, something that is supposed to perform a special task. We generally use the term function or module, we do not use the term subroutine or macro. So, it is called a function or a module. A program comprises of a number of functions, each function performing a subtask. The collection of those subtasks solves the entire task at hand, which is nothing but the divide and conquer approach of OOP. So, function and module, what does it contain? We say it performs a specific task. It contains a set of statements and these statements accomplish the task or subtask. And every C++ program, like a C program, needs to have a function called main. We all know what is a main function. It is a starting point of any C program. The compiler starts its execution from there. In C++ also that is the same case. So, this is an example program, hash include iostream.h, which is nothing but the header file. So, this is only an example. In C we had stdio.h, here we have iostream.h. Void main is the function where the program starts. You have the cout function. Cout is the output function in C++, the syntax of which we will be seeing in the later slides. So, here we are, it is somewhat similar to the printf statement in C. So, here we are printing welcome to C++ programming and we are closing the function. So, here you have the simplest form of a C program without any classes. So, this is just similar to C. Instead of printf you are using cout and instead of stdio you are using iostream. So, each of these extra features or different features in C++ we will be explaining, I will be explaining in detail in the later sessions. So, here we are just printing a statement welcome to C++ programming and that is given as the output. So, the output of this program will be like this. So, now you will have an idea of what all you need to know when you write a C++ program. You need to know about the header files, you need to know about the cout and cin statements, the printf, scanf, what are the different statements available in C++, and you need to know how the process of compilation linking proceeds in C++. So, before we move on to all that, you need to know what are the operators available in C, the identifiers, literals and so on. Though they are similar to C in most of the aspects, it is always better to have a brush up so that you do not misuse certain symbols which have different meanings in C with that of C++. So, first we will start off with the keywords. So, we all know what are keywords. They are reserved words which have special or predefined meaning that cannot be altered. They cannot be used as identifiers or variable names or constant names. They have to be used only for the purpose for which they are defined. An example for that is integer, auto, static, float, double, switch, if, for, all these are keywords. They all have those predefined meanings. Next you have the identifiers. So, we will be seeing about the features of these identifiers after the break. Welcome after the break. Now, we are going to see about the identifiers that are available in C++. These identifiers are invented for the programmer's use, like based on the application that is at hand, we give some meaningful names to the values that are to be used in the program, so that anybody who reads the program will be able to understand what the program is actually meant to do. And there are certain rules for giving the identifier names. They must begin with a letter or an underscore. They can be a combination of digits, alphabets or underscore, but they should not begin with a digit. They should begin only with a letter. No spaces or special characters or symbols are allowed, like you cannot have plus, minus and so on. You should not have spaces in between the alphabets in a identifier name. And it's always good and recommended to use meaningful identifiers. So these are the rules we should bear in mind when we create identifiers in a program. And here we have given some examples. One is having only letters, the other is having a combination of letters and numerals. Now C++ is also case sensitive, so a small e is different from a capital E. So that also has to be kept in mind when we create these identifier names and use them. Next we move to literals. Now literal is another name that is given to the word constant. So we have already seen this concept of constants in detail in C. The same features, the same characteristics hold good in C++ also. So literals are data items that never change their value during the program execution. Once you create a literal or a constant and you give it a value, it can never change during the execution of the program. Neither should you also accidentally change the value of that constant. In constants you have integer, which can hold only whole numbers. It cannot hold floating point or decimal or fractional numbers. You have floating point constant, which is mainly meant to hold only decimal numbers. In floating point also we have seen how to express the floating point numbers in the Mantis or exponential form. The same way you can exhibit here also. Character constant, again it can hold only single characters A, B or C. Any one of the letters that are available in C++ you can hold, and that should come within single quotes. You have the string constant, which can hold either one character or a sequence of characters, and that should come within double quotes. So the same rules follow up for C++ as well. Next we go to this concept of variables. So what is a variable in C++? Like identifiers, variables are also special names which are given to hold the values of the data that are used in the program. So variable is a location in memory that has a name and may contain a value. So it is a name to hold a value, and this, when you say variable and you give it a value, immediately the memory gets allocated for it. So it identifies a space in the computer's memory which holds that particular value. So these variables can be either integer, decimal, that is fractional numbers, or they can be characters. When you have sequence of characters, they form a character array or a string. So rules for naming variables: they should not be a keyword, almost the same as that for identifier names. They should not contain spaces, special characters or symbols. They must begin either with a letter or underscore, not with a digit. They can be a combination of letters, numerals or underscore after the first letter. And they can have any number of characters. Variable names, there is no limit on the length of the variable names, but generally we use short and meaningful variable names so that it is easy to identify the program, and every time you use that variable name it will take less time and less space also, and you can identify what value is being held in what type of variable. Say you calculate the area, you need to have either the side of the square or the length and breadth of the rectangle. So if you give L and B, such short variable names, it is easy to write the program and execute it. Next we move over to the data types that are available in C++. This also is exactly similar to the type of data types we have in C. You have simple data types and data types which are formed according to the user's need also. So in simple data types you have integers for for whole numbers without decimals. You have floating point numbers to hold decimal values, and you have strings which are nothing but a sequence of characters. So when you say integers, it is the same 2 bytes memory that is required, floating point is 4 bytes, and string you have a sequence of characters. So based on the number of characters in the string, for one character you have 1 byte of memory allocation. In integer data types also you have character. Why we are bringing this character under this integer data type is because when you give an integer, when you say an integer, you can even represent a character value in that, because every integer has a ASCII value, every character is having an ASCII value. So if you give the number 65, it identifies the alphabet A of the English language. So that is why here character data type is brought under integer data type, because every character is identified by its integer ASCII value. Short is nothing but short int, which is a default type of integer. You have the common integer here, and long int, which is nothing but integers which have double the amount of storage. So, if you want a long integer, you have to explicitly define it. Boolean data type is a new data type that is introduced here. It can have only two values. It can either be true or false. It can be either 0 or 1. So, Boolean data type is mainly used in relational operators where the output of the comparison can be either true or false. So, this character can hold digits as well as symbols. You have short, int and long, which are numbers without decimals. So, these are the data types which are used for these particular type of values. So, if you are going to use a digit or a symbol, you can use a character data type. If you are going to give a value of a number without decimal, you can use these integer data types. Boolean has two values, as I said, true or false. Now, these floating point types, they are stored using the scientific notation or exponential form, as we say. So, here there are four things which have significance. One is the sign of the main number, the number before the decimal. You have the significant digits of the number. You have the sign of the power of 10, that is that E followed by the number represents the power of 10, and you have the power of 10. Some numbers need not be given the power of 10, they will not be having a negative value. So, we will see what are these examples which are exhibited in the scientific notation. First is the sign of the power of 10 is exhibited by that E followed by minus 1, which is nothing but is equivalent to 5.1 into 10 to the power minus 1. So, E represents the power of 10, the alphabet E represents the power of 10. The number that follows it represents whether it is a positive power raise or a negative power raise. For example, 57 is a positive number which you are representing it as 5.7. 5.7 into 10 will give you 57 as the part of the number before the decimal. So, that is how you exhibit floating point numbers, both negative as well as positive, using these exponential form. And then you have the sign of the number. Here you have 57, which is a positive number. So, when you are representing it in the floating point representation also, it is having a positive sign. So, these are the types of floating point representations available in C++. This is also similar to the types we have studied in C. So, in floating point types, again you have three classifications in that. They can have different ranges of values, like we have short int and long int to represent short integer numbers and bigger integer numbers. Like that, in floating point also you have different ranges of values that can be represented, which require different types of memory. So, in floating point data type, you are having the common float data type, the double, which requires double the amount of storage. So, for floating point operation, if you floating point data type, if you require 4 bytes, for double you require 8 bytes, and long double you require 10 bytes. So, it is only a different in the range of values that can be represented and the amount of storage that is needed. Then finally, the string type, this is programmer defined, like a programmer only define what is the value that is to be held in a string. Though you say character of 10, what does it indicate is how much of space it holds depends upon the values that are given by the user. And this requires the header file string.h. It is nothing but a sequence of characters, and these are examples which are given within double quotes. So, a character when put together, number of characters put together in consecutive locations form a string. So, to identify it as a string, you need the header file string.h. Now, here we come to the input and output functions in C++. As I said, when we saw the basics of a C program, we are having the cout and cin functions. So, when we will be seeing how to get the input from the user and how to display the output to the user in a C++ program. Storing data in the computer's memory, like when you get the input from the user, you are going to store the data in the computer's memory. So, how is it done? As we all know, when we give the value for a variable, memory is allocated. So, the programmer needs to fetch a value from the input device and place it in the location. So, for this reason only we have this cin statement. So, cin is the input command in C++. So, the cin, when you give like this in this format, cin followed by two greater than symbols and the value, whatever value you give is immediately put into the computer's memory. So, here we have given 456. So, the x holds the value 456. So, here this greater than operator is called the extraction operator. Cin is called the input command, followed by the extraction operator, followed by the value, followed by the variable name for which we give the value. So, this is very much simpler compared to the scanf statement in C, where we need to use the format specifiers and then give the variable name. Here you simply have to use cin followed by these two operators followed by the variable name, and that will automatically accept the value from the user. And the same way the output, that is when you want to display something on the screen, you have to send the value to the output device, which is normally the monitor. It can also be a file or it can be any other output device. So the syntax is cout, which is nothing but the output command followed by the less than symbol, which is nothing but the insertion operator. The example for this, here the cout is the output command, this is called the insertion operator, and these are the values that are to be printed. Okay, so this is how the output statement is to be written in C++. You have to be very careful that you do not confuse between these two types of operators, insertion and extraction. Extraction is greater for cin, insertion is less than for cout. Next we come to the concept of manipulators in C++, which is nothing but to alter the way output is displayed on the screen. So manipulators are operators for formatting the output according to the user's choice. You have 4 types of manipulators. From the name itself you can identify the work: endl, setw, setfill and setPrecision. So endl is nothing but similar to the new line character. When you give endl in the output statement, it will just leave a line before it prints the next line, that is all. So here you are having the cout, you are printing hello giving endl, and then you are printing how are you. So this is how the output is printed. Wherever you give endl, there it will leave one line and print the output. So when you want the output to look good, you have to include this endl statement after the data which is to be printed. Setw stands for set width, that is the maximum field width on the output screen. The syntax for that is setw, and within brackets you have to give how much of width you have to set. It is usually an integer. It causes the data that follows it to be displayed in a field so many characters wide. So an example for that is cout. You give first the width of the field, then you give the output name, and then you give endl. So endl will leave a line, and the set width will set 10 spaces, and it will print NAME in that space. So here also the output will look nice and spacious. Now NAME requires only 4 spaces, but you have assigned 10 spaces for NAME. So it will leave 6 spaces after the word before it prints the next one. Now setfill is nothing but for filling the space with extra information. Like when you have lot of space between words, you can decorate it using some special symbols. So if the value does not fill the entire field, some character can be used in the setfill manipulator. So here the syntax is setfill and what symbol you want to use. The same syntax, cout, setw, then whatever symbol you want to use, and then the data. Now here if you see, this setfill will be applicable only to the first data, that is 57. 57 requires only 2 spaces, but you are assigning 10 as the width. So the rest of the spaces is occupied by that special symbol star. So these are just for manipulation of the output. Finally, you have the setPrecision, which is used with floating point numbers. It is used to set the number of digits that are to be printed after the decimal point. There are 2 types, fixed and scientific. So when you use the keyword fixed and you give setPrecision, it will print 3 numbers after the decimal. If you give scientific, the output looks like this. So 3 numbers after the decimal point, which represents this one, and here it is printed in the exponential form, which is nothing but the scientific way of printing. So these are the different types of manipulators to format the output. Mostly we will be using only the endl manipulator, the rest of them are only according to the user's choice. So we have seen about overloading, the types, function, constructor and operator. Tokens are nothing but the smallest elements with literals, identifiers, variables, keywords and operators. Manipulators is to format the output. The types are endl, setw, setfill, setPrecision. The input and output commands are cin and cout with their respective syntax. So in today's session we have seen about the concept of overloading, the different types, and then we have proceeded with the basics of C++, what are the essentials we need to know before we write a C program, about the way to display the output, how to get the input from the user, how to format the output and so on. So we will be seeing the rest of the concepts required for writing a C program in the next sessions. Thank you.